Welcome everyone to Teamwork Makes the Dream Work. We're excited to bring this to you today on International Women in Engineering Day. You know, this day is an awareness campaign to raise the profile of women in engineering and focus attention on careers and opportunities available to young women in engineering. And we're going to take the opportunity today to talk about women in commissioning. As part of this campaign, we'd also like to take a moment to look at our own efforts as an association to highlight some diversity in our industry and our efforts as the BCA to be more inclusive to all humans in this amazing profession. Recently, the BCA has been working on our diversity, equity, and inclusion with a consultant. We've been surveying folks, running focus groups, doing an internal audit of our own policies and practices, to ensure that we are being as inclusive as we possibly can and create that diversity that we need to succeed in our profession. And although we have a few things we can improve upon, we did not find any big red flags, which is awesome as your executive director, but more opportunities for us to open doors and allow more people in. So that's what this panel today is about, helping other women, not just helping other women, but all of those we want to hire and navigate into our world. You will continue to see more of these events from us as we move through our process. And in fact, in September at the National Conference on Building Commissioning, which I hope to see you all at, we're going to have a panel on this and talk about some of the things we learned and some of the things that we can do as an association, but as professionals, as just great human beings to help guide people into the next generation in our profession. So I'm excited today to bring this group of women together to talk to you. And I would like to turn this over to Candace Rogers now. She's the president of Paladin. She's a commissioning firm in Lexington, Kentucky, and she is this year's BCA treasurer, been on our board for a while, and we're really glad she's here to guide us through this conversation. Candace?
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate it. We all are in for a treat because our panelist is full of amazing women in the profession. I'm going to go alphabetical to introduce our panel today. The first is Carrie Donovan. Carrie is the president of BCxA Commissioning, which is focused on the pharmaceutical and biotech, R&D, and healthcare industries. BCxA is a women-owned business, and she is dedicated in her work to establishing a culture of inclusion, collaboration, and support. Carrie is a Penn State grad, and she's even invited back for a guest lecture. For the Building Commissioning Association, Carrie serves on the international board and is also immediate past president for the Mid-Atlantic chapter. Outside of the building industry, Carrie volunteers with WEBEC, and she was a 2020 WEBEC star. And she also volunteers with Girls Exploring Tomorrow's Technology and 2 German Shepherd rescues, because one is not enough. The second panelist I'd like to introduce is Lynn. Lynn is Senior Commissioning and MEP Coordinator for DPR Construction. She often says she's gone to the dark side, but we disagree. She currently serves on the International Board of the BCA. She's been on the California chapter and is currently the chair of the BCA Annual Conference. Again, a selfish plug to say, occurring in September 2022 in Phoenix. Professionally, she is the co-chair for basically all things lighting, it seems like. She's on the new IES standard for the sequence of operation for lighting control systems. She teaches classes on lighting controls, and she's the upcoming chair for the revision to GG29, which is the commissioning process applied to lighting and control systems. She teaches classes on lighting control at the Pacific Energy Center and at Light Fair. And then in her spare time, she's on the advisory board of TechBridge, which is an after-school STEM program for girls, who awarded her as Role Model of the Year. Nicole Imeson is our next panelist, and she is from Calgary, Alberta, and she specializes in the design and contract administration of HVAC, plumbing, and fire protection systems throughout Western Canada. In her spare time, she hosts a podcast about engineering failures called Failurology. something we all hope we are never on. Nicole is a member of the board of directors for the Western Canada chapter of the BCA, and she's also their president-elect in 2023. In addition, she has been an active member of the BCA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force that Liz was talking about earlier to help us promote DEI throughout the organization. And then last but certainly not least is Saffron Skinner Wilson. Saffron is also a Canadian, and she brings over 10 years experience in both construction management and that system called the building envelope, where she does design and review. Her knowledge of strong construction experience have been built on the contractor side through involvement with some of Calgary's most iconic buildings. And with her multiple years of engineering consulting, and that has complemented the constructability knowledge. She was a 2021 recipient of the BCA's 20 Under 40, and she's the communications director of the Western Canada chapter of the BCA. So you can see we have quite an amazing panel to ask some of these questions about, women in commissioning and how we work together in our industry. Preparing for the session today, I took a little walk down memory lane, and I remember my first BCA leadership retreat where Gretchen Coleman, Lori Cady, and Emily Hogan, they kind of tucked me under their wing and really helped me feel comfortable. And that set the tone for my experience, volunteering at the BCA. And I think the same is true about my professional career. There have been some really supportive allies. So I wanted to open up the conversation to ask about a time when an ally supported you. Saffron, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I feel really strongly about this topic actually, because I have been just unbelievably fortunate throughout my entire life and my career, because I've just been surrounded by mentors and allies and people who've supported me to get to where I am right now. So I mean, just even within my circle of family and friends, we have a couple ex-Court of Queen's Bench judges, some leadership development specialists, a leader in the Chamber of Commerce locally, several serial entrepreneurs, a couple down in Texas who are larger than life, and I go to them on a regular basis. One of them, she is 83 now, I think, with blue hair, and has started 30 companies on her own, and she's just been a spectacular voice of reason when I've come across something in the professional world. In my family, I have entrepreneurs, I have strong women, I have strong men, I have just a phenomenal foundation of people I can go to for moral support or personal development, professional development. I've had some really phenomenal leaders in my career, some that, you don't always mesh with all the leaders that you work with, but there's been a couple that I've been incredibly fortunate to come across that have just fit perfectly with what I'm trying to do, that I've really enjoyed and respected them, and they've done everything they can to kind of give me the boost that I need at any moment in time. Or the rein back. I'm a little bit type A, for those of you who know me. So that is equally important. But it's just about having the people that are there to support you, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have just this huge foundation of people that I can go to for one-off items or recurring meetings, or just support whenever I need it.
So Carrie, I wanted to ask you, what do you think makes the difference between an ally and a mentor?
Sure. So allies to me it's more of a loose relationship where it's somebody who's probably a colleague or someone kind of similar level to you, that's really providing support and somebody to bounce something off of, and really almost like a cheerleader for you. Whereas a mentor to me is more of a structured relationship where you're going to be focused on your career development, maybe set up times with them, somebody who they provide advice and guidance and things like that. For me, I think more important than any of these is really a sponsor, which is somebody who's in a position of leadership, could be senior executive level, who's going to advocate for you. This is someone who, again, more of a loose relationship, but they talk about you when you're not even in the room. They help find opportunities for you. They use their network to help you. And I think when you have an unbalanced work environment, similar to STEM construction, where commissioning resides, right? that sponsorship is very important when you are on the underrepresented side of things. And since, you know, women are leaving engineering at a faster rate than we're coming into it, you're not going to see as many women in positions of leadership because they're either coming out of the industry and so very few have gotten that far. So I think, to me, it's important that, you know, sponsors are coming from everyone. It's not just women sponsoring women, it's men sponsoring women. But to me, that sponsorship is like really where that magic happens.
Mm-hmm. So a show of hands from the panel, who here had images of their sponsors pop up in their head when Carrie was talking? Yeah, they really matter. They're so important. Thank you for bringing those people to my mind. That was so, you know, obviously allies, mentors, sponsors, supportive associates, those have an impact. Does that place a sense of responsibility on you, you know, to pay it forward and support someone else? And if so, you know, what are some of the ways that you're doing that? Lynn, I wanted to ask you that question.
I think for me, you know, going on 20 plus years as an engineer and staying technical, I know for me, just staying in it is the way that I pay it forward, to provide folks with, you know, a role model, a vision of what they could be, despite all my flaws. You know, there's a phrase that I like to say: if you can see it, you can be it. But in addition, I pay it forward by, you know, volunteering for a program called Tech Bridge. It's an after-school STEM program for girls. I love it. I've been involved with it for almost 20 years. It's a great program. But I also make sure to seek out the women on my job sites, the women on my job teams, and highlight, you know, how amazing they are, and make sure to listen to what they're saying, and be an open ear, and offer myself as, you know, someone that they can come talk to if the moment isn't right, you know, right now, in the future as well.
That's really important. I think you're right. A lot of people have said, just, you know, seeing you in those positions helps me think I can do it too. I can be there as well. Nicole, what are some thoughts that you have about paying it forward?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. I think there's a perception that there's only enough room for a certain number of women at the top. And I just completely disagree. I think we should just add more seats to the table rather than removing people. And so I'm trying to bring up as many people with me as I can. And I think that's a really important part of the process. So I try to advocate for as many people as I can, try to get them, if they're stuck in a rut, you notice they're doing the same kind of tasks over and over, try to get them working on different projects or working with different teams, and just making sure that everyone's happy. Because I think this career path can be really, really fun. I like problem solving. I like the technical challenges that we have. And so work should be fun.
Work should be fun. We spend a lot of time doing it.
Yeah.
So in addition to those, personal relationships that have helped you all succeed, there's also this work environment that helps people succeed in their careers. And so, that makes me think of culture and company culture, workplace culture. And so I wanted to ask, what are some of the components of workplace culture that are important to you? And I wanted to kind of open that up to Saffron.
Well, so like aforementioned, I'm a little bit type A, I'm a little bit neurotic. And so I think a lot of engineers probably fall in that category. But for me, I find that the best way to kind of wrangle that beast, as it were, would be to have a fair amount of flexibility, to be able to make my time suit where my brain is at any point in time. I mean, there's a 9 to 5 is the traditional engineering world. But I work really well from 6 in the morning till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And in that time, I'll probably have gone and run an errand and or walked the dog, because the ability to be on that much is actually really exhausting. And so for me, if I can be flexible in my work style, I find that just get huge value out of that. And I can fit so many more things into my day, guys. Because I can run errands at 8 o'clock in the morning when no one else is in the store. But the flip side of that too is accountability, because flexibility on its own allows for chaos. It allows for missed deliverables. You're not servicing your clients. You can't be there for your team. So I found that the best work environments that I've had, and including my one right now, is, you're treated as an adult to make your own decisions, if you commit to something, you should hold yourself to it. Make your own decisions about when you're going to be in the office, what you're going to wear to the office, but be an adult about it and be accountable for your own decisions. And so, one of the things I love about that too is it allows you to thrive, because if I'm going to say that I'm going to try and, go way beyond my actual capacity, then I'm held accountable to it. And when if I struggle at that and I, need some support, then I can go to someone and say, hey, I've made this commitment. Can you help me? Because I know that my accountability is going to be questioned if I can't deliver it. But then when you do deliver it, you're like, I'm amazing. And you get to effectively just demonstrate that, you deserve a seat at the table and that you should be there. So I think the values of having flexibility on its own or accountability on its own kind of fall short. But if you bring the two of them together, I've just found that that's been in a work environment where I personally have thrived. And I've seen a lot of other individuals kind of around me really enjoy that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, accountability is not a bad thing. That's actually a wonderful tool. So, Carrie, what are some thoughts that you have? You're the president of your company. You kind of help set the tone and the culture. What are some things that you think are important to have there?
Well, I really locked into the flexibility, but in a different format. I feel like certainly in charge of your own work schedule. Let's be honest. For what we do, it's hurry up and wait, get everything ready ahead of time, and then wait for it to actually happen, which is never going to happen on the timeline somebody said it was. So you have to be flexible, right? So because of what we do, our schedules have to be flexible. But the other piece of that, to me, when I was thinking about a flexible work environment, to me is I don't like being told that I haven't done steps A, B, C, and D, so I can't do the thing I actually want to do, right? And so for our culture, because I hate that so much, our culture is very much, if you are passionate about something and it's something that's beneficial to the company, beneficial to your colleagues and our clients, then you're going to do it. And we don't have to say you're this cog and you don't get to be the next biggest cog until you finish this and somebody moves out of the way. And we don't have that. So our organization is sort of flat because people become their own subject matter experts because of the thing that they're interested in. And I did not like being held back where I had worked, previously larger major companies where it's just, you got to do steps 1 through 4, and then in 5 years we'll do something else and change your title, and then you'll get to do this. No. So to me, I think that's really important is that flexibility of kind of helping drive your own career, that you feel like you have some skin in the game of, to your point, I have to be accountable. If I'm going to do this, I have to be accountable for it. So I'm going to take more increased responsibility. So I think there's that. The other thing I think that's always drawn me to a company is diversity at the leadership level, but specifically in technical roles. So you'll often see maybe like construction companies where you've got the sea of the same faces, except for the one person who's the CFO or whatever, and that's the woman, right? And so there's the diverse C-level leadership. And I think when you see that and you're a young woman out of college or anyone, honestly, and you don't see anybody there that looks like you at a technical level, and I'm not disparaging anyone in CFO, that's not my goal here, but you want to see that's to Lynn's point, you can see it, you can be it, right? So to go into a company and go there's a career path here for me, and it's not going to be trying to claw my way up through, or everybody's looking at you a little different, like, why are you trying so hard to do this? So those are the kinds of things that, for me, the company culture, and again, a lot of it's just when you've been somewhere else, the pendulum swings the whole other way, right? You go I'm never going to do this. So that flexibility and accountability at the top level, that's really important to me and for our culture.
Lynn, I was also thinking about this question, with respect to you and, being on the construction end. It's a very different, very different culture than, commissioning professional services. So what is it that you look for in your culture?
Gosh, exactly like Carrie said, quality and leadership. I Carrie, when I get recruited or when I look at companies, I immediately go to their homepage and look at their leadership page and look at who is in leadership and is there a path for me? One of the things that attracted me with working at DPR was the number of women that we have. And my heart goes out for companies with not a lot of women, because it can be really, really hard to recruit other women, because I'm like, well, I'm going to be the only one or the first one, and I've been in that position before. I don't want to go back there. So I look at the quality of not just the leadership, but also the team. And I'm really thankful DPR is very progressive. My current project, we have 2 women superintendents, a woman senior project manager, and woman lead architect. Actually, fully half of our project, our core project team is women. And I'll tell you what, it's just a different way of working. I feel like I can exhale. I feel like I can bring my true authentic self to work. I don't have to apologize. I can wear whatever I want and not have to apologize for it. My startup stripes are celebrated as just part of who I am. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's interesting. You share that story about being the only one in the room. I remember sitting in, I think there must have been like 20 people. We were doing an IPD charrette, and the CEO that we were working for came in, and he's like, "You used to being the only woman in here?" And I kind of looked around. I was like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that." Yeah. Anyway, he said, "You don't even notice anymore." But I know we've all been in that situation many times, and it certainly is nice to have someone that, like you said, looks like you. So that kind of takes me to the next component that I was thinking about, culture. So then, do you think that there is a difference in hiring or employing women that's different from hiring or employing anyone else? And, what are some things that should be considered? And Nicole, I kind of wanted to open that up to you.
Sure. Start me off with the hard question.
You're tough, girl. You got it.
Oh yeah. I think there are differences. I don't think they're black and white. I do think that there's much more flexibility that needs to be offered to people. I also think that it's, what am I trying to say here? That it's really important that we are not offering one path. So I think there's a lot of people that have been in this industry for a really long time that think you do step 1, then step 2, then step 3, and you must follow that path. And I think we're learning as more women join the industry that there isn't one path. There are multiple paths, and sometimes you make lateral moves, and sometimes you jump ahead, and sometimes you step back if your workload's just too much. And so I think offering that flexibility is a really, really important part of that exercise. And I think also tying into that and tying also back into workplace culture, clear expectations, I think are really, really important. I can do whatever you need me to do, but if you're not going to tell me what that is and make me try to guess, then I'm probably not going to give you necessarily what you want, because I'm winging it. So I think clear expectations are also a really, really important part of expanding our industry to be more flexible and to be more open to a diverse range of people. And I know this panel is focusing on women in commissioning, but I think that, diversity isn't just about gender. It's about age, it's about ethnicity, race, gender. There's so many factors that are involved. And so I think just being open to what people need and what they're looking for and how you can get that value trade-off as an employer-employee I think looking at that, having an open conversation is really, really important.
So Saffron, I know that I think you were sharing that you've had 3 months at your current employer. So congratulations on the position. But considering this question, what are some things that you think were important to you're being considered as a woman employee at your new position?
Yeah, it's I think I actually come with a little bit different of an opinion than most engineers, because in building envelope, it's actually a lot less math based. Like, I make the joke that, as a structural engineer by education, my last exam, I designed a floor slab that was negative 119 millimeters thick. Like, I'm not great at math. Like, I'm not your typical engineer. And so building envelope does tend to take the more theoretical, the more risk analysis, communications, people-oriented, very areas of gray type of engineers, which honestly, in my last role, there was our group was of 12 in the Alberta office. And I think all of the engineers were women, or the EITs. Our group was over 50% women. And that just because there just happens to be more women interested in this field by proportion than I think there would be in structural or mechanical or electrical. So I found that when I was in construction, like you were talking about being the only woman in the room, like, I remember my first big project when I graduated was the biggest project going on in Calgary. I was the GC, and I would sit in meetings of like 40 people, and I would count how many women there were and who was under the age of 30. Just not even because I cared, because it was just academically fascinating. But I've found that being a woman in the room has been both a benefit in a lot of times, and it's challenges in some regards. But when you talk about hiring women for what I'm doing right now, I'm with a lot of architects, and it's a fascinating world. It is completely different from anything we've ever experienced in our careers. My first week on the job, I was taken to a bridal shower at a high tea for one of my colleagues with 18 of us around the table. And again, I counted the number because I was so shocked, because I haven't been in that kind of dynamic since high school. And so it was funny. I never even thought that being a woman was really all that different. Like, it never crossed my mind. It was just take whoever's better for the job, just hire them. And I'm now starting to see a little bit of like, oh, there actually might be like benefit, not to hiring someone because they're a woman, but almost like, I consider it like extracurriculars. If you have someone who does really cool extracurriculars, they might bring a really fun perspective to the table. They might be more engaging of an individual, but you're not going to hire the person because of those extracurriculars. So, I mean, I like to think that where I'm at now has been not really because I'm a woman, but just how my interests lie. But now being in an architecture firm and being surrounded by 50% women, it's different. It's great, but it's different.
It is. It is.
Can I just say one thing, Candace, as we talk about hiring, and what I have found is that, and on the verge of being stereotypical, what I have found that our female engineers who work in the field in commissioning seem to be more effective. And I think it comes down to a communication style, in that, I mean, as commissioning providers, right, you're working with the installing trades, you're working with construction management, you're working with AE team, right? You're working with the owner. So there's so many different players around that table that I feel that my women engineers are very good at navigating the different personalities, the different dynamic of how to interact with those different groups. Not that my male engineers don't do a good job too, but I think they're able to navigate that a little bit more effortlessly. And I think it makes them quite effective in getting work done when you are working across that broad spectrum of positions, titles, authority, and things like that. So I like sending our women engineers out into the field because they get the job done.
That's wonderful to hear. So I was, one of the things I was so impressed by when well, first working with you all on different projects, but also, kind of researching, your backgrounds and your accomplishments. It's just how personally and professionally accomplished you are. And that really, speaks to leadership skills. And so, I was kind of thinking through the different leadership skills that I have used in the past, both bad and good. And I think we've all got to the spectrum, at least I hope so. And so I, kind of wanted to open up, to Lynn, what leadership style has been, most effective for you, and why has that been?
Well, you had me laughing because I've tried a lot, and some have been successful and some have not. I mean, raw leadership style. I mean, I would say persistence. I mean, how else?
We are
how
in
else have
commissioning.
I mean, right. And how else have I stayed, 20 plus years? But, I like collaborative. I like to, I might have an idea. I try to hold that idea strongly but loosely. What's the Reddit thread, change my mind. I'm open to changing my mind if there are new and better facts about it. But, also I know that I'm not, I may not have the right solution, and that there are others out there that are part of our team. And so, I will talk with that team either formally or informally, hey, what do you think? What's the best plan of action? What happens if we do it this way? So that I can make a very informed decision from a bunch of different perspectives, and something that works best for our team. Because what I may think works best, our superintendent says, Lynn, that's going to require a graveyard shift, and good luck finding somebody, for that. So, you make your plan, and then you change your plan. So, but collaborations worked really well for me.
My husband and I have a joke that he's the barge and I'm the winds of change. So you kind of need that in all relationships at home, but also in your work life. So, Saffron, what are your thoughts about leadership style and what's been effective for you?
Well, I mean, there's two parts to this question. It's those that have been really effective leading me, and those that I'm trying to lead. And I know I'm really trying to work through my own leadership style because I'm at this new role and starting to build a group under me. It's really great. We had our first hire. She's a female. And up to this point, I've just been managing myself, which is no easy task. But I've really found I kind of interpreted this question as leadership styles that I responded well to. And I mean, we talked a little bit earlier. I talked about the flexibility and accountability. But one thing that I've found really valuable in a leader is one that I can respect their technical and professional competency, because not all leaders or managers have that. And then also that they're supporting you and they have your back, but they're also not going to let you just run off in the wrong direction. And so, I mean, which actually came to mind first when I was thinking about this was an old horseback riding coach of mine that I had, who was amazing. And she was the first one to kind of teach me that about myself, and that I really enjoyed that side of things. And I was competing at Spruce Meadows. It's a big horseback riding competition globally, but this one is in Canada. And I just forgot my saddle that day and I had to train. And so I went and I just jumped around without a saddle in the training kind of arena. And there was people that were just almost heckling me from the side. And she stood up for me. And her comment was, if she can jump like that without a saddle, she's going to kick your ass when she gets a saddle and has full gear and is actually competing in the show. And so I knew she had my back. And then the next day, I again kind of deviated from what's deemed acceptable on those very high profile showgrounds. And I was going to ride in shorts rather than in breeches. She tore a strip off of me because that was completely unprofessional. That was not how I was going to represent her, myself, our barn. And so it was such a clear delineation of I've got your back, but I'm not going to let you put a foot in a truly wrong place. So she was there guiding me. She had my best interests in mind, but would kind of let me run off and kind of find my own way, which is like minor course corrections were required. And that's always stuck with me as being the best way of leading someone, is letting them trial and error, but being there to truly stop them from making something they can't come back from.
It takes a very talented person to be able to know when to let go and then when to rein in, to use your horseback riding analogy there. Love it when it comes together like that. So, I was wondering, for you all, what does the expression of having it all mean? And Nicole, I wanted to open that up to you first.
Yeah, I think there's a traditional understanding that it means, having the family and the white picket fence and the job that's your dream job. I think that's the traditional thought on what having it all means. But that, for me, it just means I love going to work. I love the projects that I'm working on. I love all of the people that I'm working with, all of the things that I'm doing, and I feel completely fulfilled in all of those different roles. I wear a lot of different hats, and I enjoy, for the most part, I enjoy them. And so I think that's what having it all means. And I think the most important part of that is that you define that for you. So you decide what having it all means to you. And then 5 years from now, you could completely change it if you want to. It doesn't have to stay the same. I have goals. I set goals for myself all the time. And sometimes I get partway down the path and I'm like, it's not for me. And then we divert course and we pick different goals. And I think that's fine. And that's really important. Again, going back to being flexible. But yeah, I don't think there's one have it all meaning for anybody. I think it's all kind of what you make of it.
Carrie, what do you think to that question?
I think you get to a point in your career where you have the flexibility, but you have to define what is acceptable for that. I'm still working on that personally. A few extra employees would go a long way to make that happen. But I think it's not even having it all; it's having it integrated, right? It's being able to, what you said, go at 8 o'clock in the morning to run an errand because you have control over that. You are in a results-based organization. And so having it all means maybe having managerial control of it all, right? Of being able to say, I have to get it all done. I want to get all these things done. These are my extracurricular activities, my volunteer, this is what I want to be doing. And having the ability to integrate all of those things together. That's my current definition of having it all, and I'm still working on it. So I think a lot of this just comes down to the feeling of control, like you have some control over things. And our type A personalities really drive us to that.
Yeah, there are definitely people who would not define having it all as having managerial control. They'd be like, I don't want any control. So I think to Nicole's point, it really is self-defined in some extent. Lynn, what are your thoughts about having it all?
I guess for me, in a nutshell, it's you had so many dreams and goals and you've accomplished them all, and you have to dream up new ones. That's to me having it all. And I don't know, I'm in the midst of dreaming up new goals right now, and I don't even know. I'm happy. Most of all, I mean, I'm recovering from COVID, but I didn't just take up smoking, this bass voice. but no, I mean, life throws crazy things at you, and you just got to say, okay, and this is what it is, and move with it, or move out of it, and keep on keeping on for pursuing your dreams and your options and your goals. I mean, to me, that's being free to do that. That's living the dream. That's pretty awesome for me.
I think one of my personal struggles in this space has always been, with self-doubt or comparison, because, that completely zaps the energy and the joy out of what you're doing well, what you're getting right. And, there's always room to improve in that particular area. And
Candace, I'm going to actually direct this back at you if I can, because for those of you watching, like none of us have a family other than Candace. So I'm curious to know kind of your thoughts, to put you on the spot. Sorry about that. But curious to know how you would define that.
Sure. So, I mean, I think I tend to think of this about, what is my purpose, here on earth. Right now I'm fulfilling those purposes by running a business and raising a family. I know that in the future, they won't all be so small and they will eventually have jobs of their own. And so then I get to fulfill my purposes in other ways. But, I think the things that, whether you're rescuing dogs or amazing horsewoman or, whatever that might be, I think, it's about working to get those systems in place that allow you to do the things that you prioritize. In our life, that means we have a very huge support system that allows us to be working parents. But I know there's a lot of families that are juggling those, and they've all got their own support systems, their own methods, their own systems. And so, going back to that, don't second guess the decisions that you've made. That's really important. But all about purpose. So we have one last formal question before we love to open it up to you all for your own questions, the audience for your own questions. And, that's really about thinking, for those who are considering entering the commissioning industry, what would you share with other women as they enter the field? I'm going to ask each one of you all this question. So let's go reverse alphabetical, and we'll start Saffron with you there.
Okay, so the advice that I was actually really lucky and got to speak to a bunch of grade 7s at the Calgary Girls School about engineering. And the advice I gave them was do it, because honestly, there are very few educational paths that are as all-encompassing and door-opening as engineering. You don't have to have a master's degree. You don't have to have a PhD. You can just get your bachelor's in engineering. You can do your engineering technologist, and you can do then absolutely anything else, because all it teaches you is how to problem solve, how to think critically, how to evaluate incomplete information and choose the outcome that you believe to be the best. Even if you have to reevaluate later, that is the skill set that is taught in engineering. And that skill set can be taken in every single possible direction you could ever want to go. No one's ever going to look at you and be like, you're an engineer? I don't think that you can be, hired for me. If you can demonstrate that, you have the capabilities for, again, I'm in an architecture firm. I should not do architecture, but you can still have a seat at the table with that background if you can demonstrate why, you should be there. It's not like a lawyer who, if you don't have the law degree, you can't practice, right? So it's just do it. Honestly, it's amazing. It's the best. And I'm so grateful I did.
All right. So then who would that be? Reverse alphabetical. That's Nicole. Thank you, Nicole, for doing that for me.
Sorry. Yeah, to piggyback off what Saffron's saying, I think, yeah, definitely do it. One of the interesting things about the engineering profession is, so if you're a kid and you want to be a doctor or a teacher or a fire person, you get to see those people doing their job out in the real world, and you get to see what that looks like. But you don't really get to see what engineers do. So if you can join any type of STEM program for youth, or any kind of experience you can have, I think is great to get to see what that could be. There's a lot of different disciplines. There's a lot of different industries. The possibilities with an engineering degree are endless. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and they don't even all mean staying in engineering. Of course, we would all love for you to stay, but there's, yeah, what, like Saffron said, once you have that degree, they don't take it away from you. You get to keep it forever, and so you can kind of do anything that you want. I also want to add too, if you're starting in commissioning or an engineering related field, it's really daunting at first. You're going to come in, you've just graduated from school, you're like, yeah, I know everything. Then you start and you're like, I know absolutely nothing. And that's okay, because no one else knows what's going on either. And so that's fine, at least, you know, at the starting level. And so that's fine. And for the first decade of my career, I just essentially farmed skill sets. So what can I learn? What can I ask? Who can teach me? And I just continually ask a lot of questions to just try and get as much information as possible. And I think that's why I've been so successful, because I don't approach problems like I already know the answer. I start from a place of curiosity and I ask a lot of questions and I eventually work my way to the answer. But I find that the people are a lot more receptive to that. And people are a lot more open and communicative with me, which I think is really, really helpful. And then also I've always focused on being good at my job, not, you know, who's the best or who's, you know, I just focus on being really, really good. That's where my attention is. And so then people just want to work with me because they're like, oh, well, she has her stuff together and she'll get the job done really well. And we don't have to babysit her and all of those things. And so then people start requesting me, and that always feels really nice. So I wouldn't worry about all the politics and stuff going on. Just focus on learning as much as you can, doing a really, really good job. And the rest of it will eventually come. You'll get there. It takes time. The learning curve in this industry is very steep at the start.
Ride it up though. Like that learning curve. All right, Lynn, that's your turn.
You know, I mean, I talked about persistence. I can't emphasize persistence enough. But I think the other thing that I would say is seek community. Whether that is community in term, and when I say seek community, I mean, it's some activity that reinforces who you are at your core. Because when you look out and you see that you're the only person in the room, there's nobody that looks like you. I mean, it does a number on you. You know, you're like, do I really belong here if I don't look or think like everybody else in the room? It took me a long time to realize that that's a strength. So yes, you do belong here. And it also, that community of meeting others, you know, that reinforce who you are at your core. And let me tell a story. When probably less than 10 years of my career, probably 5 years, I went to Society of Women Engineers annual national or international conference. And I stood at the top of the escalator and I looked down and there were 8,000 women at this conference. And it took my breath away. It's giving me chills still that all of these women do what I do. They're engineers. And if they can do it and they can be it, I can too. So that was my community early in my career is Society of Women Engineers that really helped me understand that what I do is completely, utterly, 100% natural and that I was made to do this. So yeah, that reinforces me who I am. Now, community may not be in the technical realm. It could be church or a religious institution. It could be, you know, a nightly basketball pickup league. It's whatever reinforces you at your core, so that you have the strength and energy and feel rejuvenated to go back out there and get in the fight, and maybe not a fight, but go back out there and still be different and be okay.
Love that. That sense of community and connectedness is so important. We're not made to be islands. All right, Carrie. So that's to you.
So, Nicole, what you were saying really resonated with me. I think, you have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think that's really hard to do, especially right out of school where you're questioning everything. Because again, you were pretty good at school and then all of a sudden you got no legs underneath you and, flailing about a little bit. So for me, it's you can't be afraid to ask questions. And it's not just to one group. It's not just to a design engineer. It's not just to the owner. It's the facility maintenance guy. It's the installing contractor. It's the vendor tech that comes out to the site. The more that you have all of the different points of the thing that you're working on, the more comfortable you're going to feel and you're going to really know it, right? So to me, that's you just have to get over that feeling of being uncomfortable. And you do it enough and it's like the nerve endings are raw at that point in time and it's okay to ask all the questions, right? So that allows you to really understand how everything works together because you've talked to all the different stakeholders at that point in time. From someone who's still in college, hopefully in engineering, I would say it is so important every year to get an internship in the industry. Don't go work at like the drugstore or the grocery store, deliver pizzas if you don't have to, because you're going to find that in this industry, there are vastly different career paths and even activities. Like somebody will spend an entire summer doing estimating and go like, I never want to do that again, right? So isn't it better to find that out now than when you go get a full-time job? So those are the kinds of things. So when we go to hire people, we're looking for someone who's tried out a couple different things and go, I really like doing this, or man, I can't sit behind a desk all day or I'm going to go nuts, right? So that looking at it early, when you just get to dip your toe in it, to really go, just like Lynn says, like, is this who I am? Does this feed my soul to sit behind a desk all day? Do I need to be out in the field, right? And oh my gosh, if you're graduating with an engineering degree, please get your EIT before you graduate because it comes exceptionally more difficult with every month you're out of school. So please, 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 if you're in school, just take the test before you graduate. So that's my feeling.
One of the things I think is interesting is that, we've all talked here about, in the advice, we've all talked about, engineering paths into commissioning. And in full disclosure, I have a marketing degree and an MBA in international business. So it really is not just a career for engineers. And I know on our board, we have a number of people that don't have, a bachelor's in engineering. And, you really can come at this industry from a number of different fields, architecture, controls technicians that come in, contractors that come in. I know that we have a ton of military folks that have entered the industry. And there are so many different points of entry into commissioning because it's a methodology for how you look at problems, how you verify systems, and then how you prove their performance. So I just, I think I just wanted to add my little 2 cents as the non-engineer on the table that it really is for so many different career paths. So don't let that one little, it's not a little piece of paper, it's a big piece of paper. I know you all work very hard for those pieces of paper, but don't let that be a deterrent if you really are interested in the field. So with that, I would like to open that up to any questions from the audience, if we have any.
Candace, we do have one. The question is, when you started out in the commissioning industry, what sort of training or experience helped you become familiar and confident with your commissioning practices? And also, as a follow-up question, what advice would you maybe give your younger self? Some of you are pretty young to be giving your younger self any advice, but if any of you have that, but I think the real question here is what sort of training and experience helped you get more familiar with commissioning? What would you offer to somebody? I think Nicole pointed out everybody knows nothing when they come into it, right? So is there something you could have done, do you think, to help you get more familiar with commissioning? Other than going to our amazing trainings and reading our best practices, which is
that was what I was going to say. Was I remember the way I learned about commissioning was for when BCxA ran the conference, you always did white papers.
Yep.
So everybody else was watching something on the television. I'd read all the white papers on the elliptical and just work out and read all those white papers. So that this has been a great training ground for me. What about you all?
Yeah, I just wanted to plug the upcoming new building and existing building training, specifically because it's in Calgary in July during Stampede Week, and we're going to the chuck wagon races. It's going to be super fun. So come up and join us. That would be great. I'm going to answer the second question though on the advice to your younger self, which kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier. And a couple of you have mentioned or touched upon imposter syndrome. I think we all suffer from it. I think that's not something specific to women, but I do think it hits us a little bit harder. And so one, just take that little voice and if you can, just shove it deep down and just ignore it. But if you can't, pretend that you're not you, that you're your best friend. And would you allow someone to talk to your best friend that way? I sure wouldn't. And so I shouldn't allow myself to talk to me that way either. So that's kind of how I approach that. And I just say, get out of here. No, we're not doing that. We're going to go forward and we're going to figure this out. So yeah, I think it's hard though, that it took a while. So it's not something that's easy to overcome, but I think with enough stubborn persistence, you can get there.
I think maybe you redefine imposter syndrome, because I completely agree with that. Maybe you just have to redefine it, because it's not really going to go away, and just say you're the greatest con man in the whole world and nobody knows that you did. And if you did, that's positive, right? Like that's just redefine it. It's fine.
You and Ocean's 11, right? So Lynn, what are your thoughts? How did you learn the commissioning field?
I took a class. I thought I wanted to do it because I thought at the time commissioning was startup. And then I met Liz.
Stop it.
At
You
a
got converted.
conference.
Yeah.
And that wasn't what it was. I was like, oh. And so then I again took a class. I didn't know about the BCA classes at the time. Now that I do know about the BCA classes, I wholeheartedly recommend them. The instructors are fantastic. Yeah, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. I liked what Nicole said is keep pursuing excellence. Because it's not about, you competing against other people, it's competing against yourself and being the best at what you're doing. Advice to my younger self. God, there's so much. I've made so many mistakes. Assume the best in folks. We're all just going through what we're going through with the information we have. And some people have great tools and other people don't. And some people have good days and other times you won't. So assume the best in folks. Yeah, they may not be all that bad.
So as we get ready to wrap up here, I want to leave you with a comment from a woman that I have loved and adored forever. And I'm going to out you, Miss Gretchen Coleman, but she says in her question, no questions. I just want to say it warms my heart to see such strong women coming up in the industry. From an industry dinosaur, which you're not, kudos to a great webinar, and it makes me happy to know I can retire with some great women coming up behind me as leaders in our industry. So thank you for that, Gretchen. And thank you, ladies, for such an amazing webinar and getting us kicked off with this, our first ever Women in Engineering International Day webinar. I really appreciate all you did today to help us talk about this conversation and get us moving. Candace, thank you so much for moderating and taking this on, and Lynn, all the meetings, getting us organized. And to all of you out there, thank you for attending today. We appreciate it. And, shamelessly, I'll plug, make sure you come to the conference this year. It's going to be amazing. And registration is open. So we'll see you in Glendale, Arizona. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.